Rugby Australia and the Wallabies have basically a 12-month handover or succession plan in place with Les to take over from Joe the middle of 2026. I did ask Les about that period and how hands-on or involved he'll be with the Wallabies. Here's what he said.
To tell you the truth, my main focus will be the Reds. It's important that that stays in the right space because a lot of people there rely on myself and the coaching team and the staff there to get that right. So, we already have a natural presence in the Wallaby space anyway. Speaking to Joe often, I've got a lot of players in our team that are part of the Wallabies. Whenever the Wallabies are in camp, we're always welcome, even shadowing at different times in test matches. So those things happen naturally anyway. So they'll just continue along the ways that they already have. But it's important that I make sure I get the right things right at the Reds because that's important for me, that still thrives, and it's important for the Wallabies that the players are in the best form possible. So there'll be no real massive change. That'll change will come closer to that time when I can, jump into the space there, maybe follow a little bit of the Nations Cup that Joe will handle at the end of that Super Rugby series, and then take over from there.
I found that quite interesting that Les more or less saying he's going to stand back and not really have too much involvement or even, go into the Wallabies a great deal until next year once Super Rugby is finished. But you sort of hinted at before, like, it'd be only natural that he'd have one eye on that job over the next 12 months while he's still in charge of the Reds.
Well, he's had one eye on it for the last however long that this process has been running. But the thing that he will do now is to start to familiarise himself with some things that maybe he may not have considered before he was officially given the role. He'll start to cast his mind, definitely. It's natural that, before you close your eyes and maybe first when you open them, there is a part of your life energy that will need to be devoted to that. One thing that I think is really interesting in this as well, and I'll throw it out to you guys, is that it has repositioned slightly also the importance of Super Rugby. Because this argument around Super Rugby is just a feeder and a development ground for Wallabies and international. And sure, that it's a selection platform, but this has been a repositioning of the importance of Super Rugby programs and the importance of their role in continuity and the importance of the dynamic for commercial engagement region by region. And I think that's
just good players coming up from Queensland into that Wallabies team. They didn't want that to be, Les to be taken out of that team.
That's right.
For the Reds to go down the bottom of the ladder, and then all of a sudden you getting guys coming back up to the Wallabies. Maybe not in the form that they're in at the moment.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Winning is a great antidote for future success. I mean, if you can win, it builds confidence. The Reds are winning, and I love the fact that Les is going to be there for another year because he set the Reds up in such a great position. He's going to have another year, and the Reds are going to have another year to find a new coach for them. It's going to give them time, and it's going to keep, hopefully keep that Queensland Reds side up towards the top of the ladder, if not winning Super Rugby titles. That flows on into the Wallabies. I love the position that all our states in at the moment, and I put that down to, one, some great coaching, two, great talent, but three, just having that one less side that we're spreading our players around to, and we've tightened up the talent, we've created the competition, and now we're seeing the fruit of that. And I would hate to see that slip away because we rush decisions and we rip coaches out of certain positions to move them along, and sides suffer, and then in turn Rugby Australia suffers. So I think it's all been handled really professionally and well.
Does there, though, need to be a little bit more of a formal process to make this handover, let's say it's a handover, let's make it as successful as it can be? Does there need to be some more formal implementation around, all right, during the July Test series, Les goes in, he's embedded in the Wallabies. Maybe the spring tour, he goes away on that with the Wallabies as well.
There's definitely some,
I mean, there will be. I mean, that can't not happen. It's not. They're not going to.
I'm just judging on Les's answer.
They're not going to fall out of the speed dial. Yeah, but I mean, clearly he's still got a group of players and an organisation that has presented a requirement and a necessity to retain his talent and IP, definitely. It would not make sense for him to then appear in an interview and say, well, I'm going to sort of share my time between the two. And that would, the terms of a contract are pretty clear. He's a Queensland Rugby employee. but there's definitely going to be an opportunity to now explore the conversation with Queensland management about, listen, there's some downtime here, there's leave periods here, I'm going to get around to the States or go on tour or go and sit behind Joe Schmidt in a coaching box, which we see all the time, by the way. We see coaches go and do that for Wallabies and national coaches all the time, so that's nothing new.
There are some wrinkles that come out of it, and I know that we're very positive about it. I mean, we saw Michael Checker do it in 2015, but he had to juggle two roles. Generally, Super Rugby coaches, like you just mentioned, have a pretty open and honest relationship with the Wallabies coach, and the Wallabies coach comes down to training and talks about where he's playing and what style they're doing, this and that. There's a slight wrinkle there with, you know, you might be playing the Reds in 2 weeks' time. You're not really going to tell Les, you know, what you're doing, you know, everything you're doing, right? And additionally, like, will he go on the spring tour? I'm not sure, like, you guys could tell me, but having the next head coach sitting in the corner sort of not saying anything or...
I don't think you'll be going to Super Rugby's and, you know, the bye week. I'm going to go drop into the Waratahs.
Yeah.
But I think Wallaby environment to build some familiarity and continuity with the other players from other provinces. I mean, the other thing is, Les Kiss, this is not a foreign coach. This is not an unknown entity. Joe Schmidt, you know, a lot of people knew of him and had cursory information, but not as DNA'd as Les Kiss. Les Kiss is an Australian sporting icon. He's got vernacular.
Aussie rhyming slang.
Aussie rhyming slang.
What's that?
And he's got, he's got endorsement, from a healthy group of players who have been overseas and Ulster, London Irish, those experiences, Ireland as well. So that's, there's a lot of positive.
Him and Joe will just have to work on a good relationship because there's communication that needs to be done with the Wallabies coach and the super teams right throughout that first half of the year. And so Joe will be that filter to Les.
Yeah.
Maybe Les isn't talking turkey with Dan McKellar and Steve Larkham, these guys, but it'll have to be done. You're right. But he did. You're right, because he said in the open presser as well. Like he said he doesn't want to be doing two roles. He's pretty adamant on that. He doesn't want to have a feet in two camps. So I think he's kind of trying to, like you say, he's painting a picture that he wants to give his full attention to the Reds.
Which he will.
But you can't. This is the other part. I wouldn't be the naysayer, but he can't turn up on August 1 carrying the baby. Joe's on the plane back to New Zealand and it's day one. Because that's maybe, if we have to pick a hole in this arrangement, it's that it's less time for Les to be prepared before a World Cup. And a home World Cup, so there's an intense pressure in being a coach for a home World Cup.
I wonder if there's an element of Les's... He's saying the right things for Queensland Rugby's sake as well. Not that he's lying or anything, but that is... I believe when he says that's got to be his main focus. But I think he's likely going to be staying connected to the Wallabies environment more than that little answer we just heard there indicates.
So you are saying he's lying?
No, I'm not saying he's lying.
In terms of employment law, as long as it doesn't compromise the delivery of his primary role, I think that there's going to be, a period of, digitally you can stay in touch with certain things and be sent emails and programs and monitoring, and he'll want to start to turn his attention to, assistant staff and what the environment of the Wallaby camp looks like for Les Kiss as well.
Yeah.